Several days had passed, but that starless place still remains anchored in the back of my unconscious mind. At first, it wasn't out of interest, only fear. That day I first encountered it, I'd sprinted all the way home without pausing, barreling through the front door and barricading myself in my bedroom. There was no way in hell Anthony or John knew where I lived, let alone where I was on this side. But the fear lingered. The image of them wandering out of the house into the daylight, flashlights and clubs in hand, was a nightmare that repeated for the next week. That, or just vague ideas that ended in me drowning in the dark. I was so concerned that I'd wake back up on that unseeable pavement that I'd swallowed my pride and plugged in an old nightlight. Mom wasn't entirely impressed. She didn't really seem to buy the excuse that I was just trying it out for old time's sake. Nor did she entirely believe that I had slipped and fallen down the edge of Norcrook Creek as an explanation for the bruises. I think she was mostly on the edge, in the general sense, though. Parents are scared of their babies being nabbed on the sidewalk in the scary modern age. Despite my reminding her that I was a very capable 18-year-old who wasn't going to enter someone's van because they had a puppy, it wasn't that particular idea that kept me from going out to Kenneth's for Halo night. Sure, we could have played online for convenience, but you haven't truly lived until you've played couch co-op with greasy pizza and good friends. Mom probably thought I was actually doing her a service this once and being cautious, but in reality, I couldn't stand the thought of walking in the dark between the street lamps. Now, Kenneth was nothing if not determined. So, when he DM'd me that we'd have to call it off because my mom was worried about me going out, his natural response was to show up an hour later with console in hand. I couldn't help laughing, and my mom didn't mind at all, so up and away to my room we went. Pizza came about 30 minutes later, so we decided to take an early food break after a rough start to the night, going a whole 0 and 3. Once Mom had taken her slice and left the room, Kenneth turned to me and pointed. "So, was it Bobby?" "Your eye. Did Bobby Royce get you?" My gaze fell, trying to think of what to say. Should I try to tell Ken the truth? It's not like I didn't trust him, but would he believe the ridiculousness that would fly from my mouth if I did? Could I go with the falling in the creek story again? If my mom didn't believe it, though, then there was no chance that he would. I had no better lie to tell. The truth it was, it seemed. I laid it all out. The girl standing in the street with a flashlight, the old house that led to some other place, one of pure darkness, the beating from the other kids, and my escape. The nervous energy I'd been hiding from my parents finally started to come out as I whispered my tale, taking form in jittery fingers and shaky voice. Maybe those tiny details in my mannerisms were the reason that Ken looked so enthralled, why he appeared to believe me so quickly. And when I was done, that's probably why he threw an arm over my shoulder and gave me a quick brotherly squeeze. "Man, I'm glad you're all right, though." "Wait, that's it? You just accept everything I say?" "Are you lying?" "I mean, no." "Then I'm glad you're all right. Nothing's changed." Relief flooded over and out of me, leaving in the form of a deep exhale. External belief in this crazy situation made me feel substantially less crazy, so I picked up a controller and joined in on the next match that Ken had started. Veto the current maps because they're both completely terrible, and I would like to see this place, though. Dread set back in right away. "What? No. Look, I do believe you, but I just want to be certain. If it's just a dark place and nothing else, then we dip our heads in and out, and that's it." "No way. 2 seconds. I'm not going back." I had to watch my volume, getting dangerously close to being loud enough for other people in the house to hear. Ken groaned. "Then just tell me where the house is, and I'll go on my own. I just want to see it. I'm not going grocery shopping there. Which old house is it? The one on Farview?" "Nothing. I'll find it by myself, Bruce." 11th Street. "Thank you, but you're not going alone." Ken stopped firing the Warthog's turrets and looked at me. I just kept focusing on driving as I bit my lip. You don't go there alone, period. 2-second peek. Got it? Yeah, absolutely. All right, good. Ken smiled and lightly punched my shoulder. Hey, get shooting. They're taking the point. So that's how I wound up back outside that house the very next afternoon, building up the courage to go inside. The plastic grip on my flashlight was picking up enough stress to make diamonds from carbon. Ken's stomach grumbled. He had skipped lunch in anticipation of this moment. This is the one? Yeah, they still haven't cut the grass. Well, let's get it over with then. Ken patted my shoulder, then proceeded towards the front door. I'm not alone this time, I kept telling myself. That was my only saving grace. If those thugs were somehow waiting for us, I knew Ken would fight tooth and nail, quite literally, to keep us safe. Like I said, determined. Just like the whole reason we were here in the first place. The door opened with little issue for Ken, only sticking a little as it dragged against the lip of the step. He stood back and gestured inside, prompting a gulp from me. Flicking the flashlight on my trembling thumb, I trudged through the doorway, fighting my feet's overwhelming urge to stop moving. I could hear Ken follow and close the door behind us, but I kept my gaze fixed on the door on the other side of the house, past the entry hall and the stairs, through the hallway, into the kitchen, where the back door sat. Now that I had a moment to look around, dim was the exact word to describe the lighting in the house. Everywhere I looked, there was a faint degree of brightness, scattered across the peeling paint and the splintered floorboards. No shadow was too deep, no sunbeams peeking through the drawn shades. Everything was neutrally lit, and the few shadows that existed were soft around the edges, blending into the lit space with ease. It was a place of true liminality between the day and the night. So it's on the other side of this door? Ken asked as we reached the kitchen. Yeah, right through there. I grabbed his sleeve and tried to step forward. Just looking. 2 seconds. We're not exploring. Ken smiled. Yeah, I already said so. Now come on. He placed his hand on the doorknob and slowly began to turn it. When it reached the end of its rotation, Ken faced me and nodded. Let's see it. My fingers gripped the kitchen counter as I stared into the abyss once more. My nails scratched its surface. My heart rate rose, and my breathing grew quick. Seeing that same barely lit porch step, that path into the night, I expected to see Anthony stride towards us and immediately start beating us senseless. Those demons, dragging us back into the dark, refusing to let us go home. Hey, you weren't kidding. Ken finally spoke. He was in just as much awe as I had been the first time. Yeah, man. He pulled out his phone and started taking pictures, then scrolling through them to make sure what he was seeing was real. His brow furrowed, and after a few more swipes, the flashlight feature was active. Turning to me, the light was pointed right in my face. Does this actually do anything, or... yes, Ken, not my eyes, man. Oh, sorry. Ken quickly swung the light back outside, and after the colored spots had faded, I could see the green grass outside being highlighted. But the light did not travel far. It was as though the darkness in this place was swallowing it whole. Instead of pitch black merely being a descriptor, it appeared to be literal, the dark of night actively absorbing the light of Ken's smartphone. Ken's eyes widened when he seemed to notice this too. Doesn't go very far, huh? Maybe if we had a real industrial flashlight or something, I don't know. Or the moon, that would light things up. Nah, no moon either. It's daytime for them too, remember? What? You're kidding me. Nah, seriously, look up. I came up to the door, and with both hands tightly gripping the frame, I turned around and leaned backwards, sticking my head out into that realm. Ken followed suit, and we both observed the pure emptiness of the sky above. Vast nothingness, not a star in place or a moon in orbit. Had there been no sense of gravity to indicate that we were looking upward, I would have just as easily believed that we were staring into an unfathomably large hole in the earth. And yet, The temperature reminded us that it wasn't true night. If the times were shared on each side, then it was mid-afternoon, and we could feel it in the warmth radiating from, well, somewhere. Being the middle of summer, we each could feel the heat of the sun falling down on our faces, beginning to scorch our skin and make sweat run along our hairlines, with not an ounce, not a twinkle of light to show its existence. 2 sacks of meat left in a slow cooker, alone to roast in darkness. Perhaps, I pondered, with an oxymoronic shiver, this was hell. We stood there, staring for some time, trying to take in the lack of anything, just as one might gawk at the everything of a clear night sky. We didn't speak. We didn't break our attention from the void to see how the other one was reacting. It was just us, the heat, and the quiet dark. All right, then, I'm convinced. I stood up and re-entered the kitchen, with Ken closing the door behind us and tucking his phone away. That's all? Ken gestured openly with both hands. No exploring, that's what we agreed, right? I mean, not gonna lie, I would like to come back sometime, Kenneth, but I promise we're done for now, just like we said. I'll prep some stuff for another time, and if you want to join me, you can. I'm not gonna pressure you. I let out a deep breath, a mixture of relief and mild concern. Hey, look, if you're coming back, you shouldn't do it alone. You know, those other guys, I don't want them doing the same thing to you. Well, no offense, but they didn't show up this time, did they? No. Ken wrapped an arm around my shoulder and grinned, starting to walk out. See, they're just people. You got unlucky and met some bad ones, just like on our side. But that doesn't mean they're gonna gang stalk this house, waiting to jump on you specifically. If it's just a normal world like ours, minus the whole, endless dark thing, we can start wandering out into that over time. Who knows, maybe we'll meet some other people. Good ones. Amanda's face flashed in my mind as he said that, and staring into that dark, without getting the crap kicked out of me, it had been relaxing in a way. Seeing that light's area of effect be so reduced had sparked my curiosity, and the uncomfortable feeling of warmth from their daylight, while my brain was trying to tell me it was night. This paradoxically tactile experience would not leave my mind. It was the same gnawing desire to understand that had led me to help Amanda in the first place. And Ken was there, would be there, with me, no longer alone at the mercy of thugs. By the time we had reached the sidewalk, back on our side, I'd come to a decision. Yeah, I think I'm down, I said, trying to shout over a passing pickup truck with a broken muffler. What? I just smirked and gave him 2 thumbs up instead. Ken responded in kind, bumping fists with mine. Thus began our amateur ventures into the world without light. The next weekend, I fished around in the cupboard and closet to find the strongest flashlight we owned before heading over to the house. It was pouring down rain, and upon arriving, the door opened onto its own, a soaking wet Ken welcoming me inside. The first test was to simply try out more sources of light, while not traveling too far from the house. The aforementioned rain turned out to be important, as we were quick to learn something upon entering the other side. Weather did not align either. In fact, Ken dressed down and threw his coat onto the dark side dry porch, while I fiddled between the different lights we'd found. By the time I had tried them all, and observed that all lights worked in terms of illuminated spaces for us to see, though with decreased efficiency, Ken was ready to head back with completely dry clothes, which only got soaked again the instant we set foot on our side. After a few more ventures and feeling confident about our current knowledge of light sources, it was time. For the next excursion, we brought markers, a notepad, assorted chalk, and a flashlight with the biggest lumen count on the box we could afford. We were about to start mapping out the new world. Walking out onto the sidewalk wasn't too harrowing. The flashlights worked well enough, and I'd already been out that far before. It was anything beyond the curve, or past the length of the lawn, that made me swallow back my fears. Staring down, where John had shoved me into the bully circle, I scrawled a red X on the sidewalk, back and forth several times, making sure it was very clear that this was the footpath back home, in case we got lost. Ken and I always made sure to stay within earshot of one another. I stayed crouched and drew my chalk lines along the pavement, making sure to add little arrows pointing back to the house occasionally. When I reached the corner, I paused and pulled out the flashlight to see the layout, a four-way stop. I relayed the information to Ken, who would mark it down. Slowly, we started filling out the block. On our 5th trip together, we managed to map out the entire block that the house was situated on. But we were still too scared to try crossing the street. Car quickly became the most common call-out. Hearing a car coming was no problem. We could hear the revving engines approach, the sputtering of rickety junkers clambering by. But still, even when I knew it was coming, I'd still back away from the road or crouch low and feel that mysterious gust of air as something flew by. Sometimes I'd raise my flashlight to see the car stopped right next to me, the ghastly illuminated face of its occupant scrutinizing me for waving such things around. Other times, we'd hear one pass on the other side of the road and quickly swing a light source at it, only to catch the edge details as it sped by. Back into the darkness, it never failed to give me the worst goosebumps. Only one thing came from experiencing these nightly contraptions: the truth of learning that any form of light, natural or artificial, coming from this realm was invisible to us. Hence, headlights did not show up, only adding to my desire for caution. But it was another big discovery, overall. Eventually, though, Ken wanted to explore further. Sometimes there was a pungent odor that wafted our way, and he was determined to find the source. Were we near a landfill? The dumpster of a restaurant with unique food to this world? I was still nervous about the vehicles, but Ken said he would cross with me. Once we were both satisfied that no cars were coming from any direction, we set forth. Together, each watching a different direction, we sidestepped across the road, back to back. I was so focused on getting across safely, my ankle met the curb and stayed there while my body tried and failed to keep walking. Falling over, I took Ken down with me, and we both hit the asphalt in an instant. Ah, what the hell, man? Sorry. Ah, my ankle. I rolled onto my butt and pulled my right leg in, hands covering my injured ankle. Oh, no. Oh, shit. Ken pulled out his backpack and scavenged around. We had some basic medical supplies, to the effect of bandage wraps and some ibuprofen alcohol. Certainly no splints or crutches, and definitely no ice in the summer heat. The combined warmth of the air, the searing pain of my lower extremities, and the limited light, as Ken tried to fix me up, made me go dizzy. Hey, water? I asked. He immediately supplied me with a fresh bottle. Cracking the lid, I downed a sizable gulp, nearly choking, before painfully pulling back my sock and running it over the ankle. Better than nothing. Can you stand? I tried putting some weight on it. Instant regret. Ken groaned. All right, we need to go home then. Let's get back across the street. Beep, whoop. A sudden, single blaring of that unknown siren threw both of us into a panic. Neither of us could pretend that the sound sent us screaming and possibly peeing our pants. The heavy roll of rubber on the cement crept closer in the dark. As we breathed heavily, waving the flashlight towards the source, our hearts sank once we realized what it was. You all right there, boys? The police officer asked, a darkly figure against the diminishing lowered beam of Ken's flashlight. Saw you take a tumble there. Neither of us were quick to answer. Ken was trying to act natural, and thus was avoiding just holding the flashlight straight up at the officer. This left most of him in shadow, a voice of authority coming from the emptiness. Yeah, we're okay. My friend twisted his ankle, but I think he's all right. Yeah, I couldn't help myself. You scared the hell out of me with that siren. The officer laughed. Well, I'm just glad you're all right. Besides the ankle, can you walk? Ken scrambled to get the backpack on and tried to lift me up, taking my right arm across his shoulder. I winced at the pain, but nodded. Yeah, enough to get home. His pause sent sweat pouring down my temples. You guys want to lift to the hospital? Just down the road, after all. Heart skipping, I did everything I could not to let my face contort into shock. hoping desperately that he'd think I was just cringing from the pain. I side-eyed Ken, and he followed suit. "I'd feel bad if I just left you alone. Come on, hop in the back. I'll take you over." We heard the click of the doors unlocking, and we had little time to excuse or refuse. But Ken threw out one last Hail Mary. No, it's all right. His house is just around the block. I'm sure we can make it back." "I don't know. He doesn't look like he can walk right now. I really think you should get it checked out." We couldn't make out his face fully, but we could hear the growing suspicion in his voice. The churning engine was the only song of the night for a moment before I finally sighed. "Let's just go, Ken." I was certain Ken was not happy about the situation, but the last thing we needed was the police prying into us. He was likely one step away from asking for IDs or inquiring in general, and there was no way that we'd be able to feasibly explain the entire alternate universe thing without ending up in the loony bin. And even if he did believe us, was it a good idea to start sharing things like that so boldly? No. The frightening path, the one that took us away from our only escape in a direction and distance untold, was the better way for now. The flashlights turned off. I tensed. Helping lift me back up, Ken grunted as he flailed his free arm towards the car. Once I heard his palm slap against the side, it only took a moment before the door handle was found, opened, and we were both situated onto the hard plastic seat. No sooner than that, we were buckled in, and the officer reversed a bit before turning left. If you've ever been in a cab and the driver takes a route you're not familiar with, there's an uneasiness that comes with it. A cab driver who is clearly getting you lost and you don't know where you're going to end up is the most gut-wrenching. Now try to imagine that feeling, except you can't even see out the windows. No landmarks to find your way home, only endless black stretching on forever and ever. Truly getting lost in an abyss. "So, do you need to contact your parents or anything?" The situation just kept getting worse. My guts twisted as I glanced at Ken. My eyes were partially adjusted to the dark, only very minimally, before being blinded as the flashlight clicked on. I froze for a moment before recalling our test. There was no reason the cop would be able to see the beam. To him, it would just be a weird shadow. And that's if he was even paying attention. Notepad in lap, Ken was deep in conversation, greatly simplifying his marker movements to singular straight lines. He was trying to make an approximate map back to the house, based on the turns the car took. Quick thinking on his part, but it was clear it was taking all of his focus to stay accurate, so that left me to engage with the officer. Nah, mine are out of town on vacation, and his mom doesn't get off work till 6, so she's not going to pick us up. I'll send her a text when we get to the hospital." "Oh, you're staying with him?" Yeah, just hanging out and stuff." "Playing Halo," Ken said suddenly, but quieted. "Yeah, playing Halo," I repeated. "Ah, good stuff. Which one?" 3, sometimes CE, we play MCC. The cop chuckled again. "Nah, Halo 2 is where it's at." I had no response. I was still too frightened by all the noises surrounding us, despite not seeing a thing. There was definitely traffic surrounding us now, meaning we were out of the suburbs. The distance had greatened, and the knot in my stomach was wringing out bile, splashing towards my throat. The pain radiated from my ankle, but it was fading. I barely noticed it in my mind as it was going 100 different directions. How could we find the house again? What would the hospital do? Would they demand to see my parents before they let me go? If I told the truth, they'd certainly keep me for a psych eval. What if... The cruiser jolted to a stop. The 2 minutes that we'd spent traveling had felt like an eternity, but it was over. "All right, here we are." Ken opened the door and hopped out. A moment later, I felt the door on my side crack open, and his arm helping me out. He kept the flashlight low, but enough to see and acknowledge the officer. "Hey, thanks for the lift, we appreciate it." The cop nodded once and shifted out of park. "No problem. Next time, though, stick to playing on the sidewalk instead of the crosswalk, all right?" "Sure thing, thanks," I managed to reply. With that, the officer pulled away, and Ken helped me up onto the new curb. He handed me the flashlight so that he could try carrying me better, while I lit the way inside the hospital. Both of us were jumpy as people came in and out of our vision with startling frequency, staring at us with befuddlement riddling their faces. We managed to get sat down, and Ken took the flashlight from my hand. "I'm going to go find the front desk and let them know. Maybe we can just get some ice for you," he whispered. "I'll be right back." Swallowing, I wished him well, then watched as he curiously scanned around in the dark for the line of people, or a sign encounter, or anything. He was trying hard to be casual with the light, but I could still see people watching him. Eventually, he found the line and slowly progressed towards the desk. Watching that illuminated spot across the room was all I could do, as I tried not to be overwhelmed with my unseeable surroundings. Without sight, sounds washed over me. The shrill beeping of an EKG machine, the endless collection of mumbles of countless patients and relatives worrying about their sinuses, the dings for the next in line, please, booming over the intercom. Phlegm-riddled coughing erupted from behind me. As I was reeling, my tactile senses were assaulted on the left, a jacket sleeve running along my forearm, from another patient suddenly taking the seat next to mine. For a moment, I squeezed my eyes shut. At least, that was a darkness of my own willingness. There, I had some peace, but the anxious part of my brain was telling me to act normal. Opening them and going from black to black was a dizzying experience. Eventually, the doctor called for us, and Ken once more helped me into the examination room. Though the pain had receded somewhat, the doctor's hands blindly turning it over brought out a few more grunts of discomfort. He confirmed what we thought, it was just twisted, and he wanted to put some ice on it, which was graciously supplied. He also gave me a crutch to get around easier, and wished us a good day before moving on. He never once asked about Ken's flashlight, and we just took it as a blessing. Leaving the building, we followed a footpath beside the hospital. We both collapsed onto the first empty bench we found, finally getting used to being caught in the dark. We heard no one on the swings or the seesaw creaking and smacking onto the ground. No middle-aged women gossiping over coffee. The only sounds of the world wandered to and fro behind us at a comfortable distance. The heat of the afternoon still wore on us, and now, having a chance to be left alone together, we could quietly sob and let out our woes. The dark was the only one to truly hear us. Collecting ourselves after that cathartic release, Ken opened his notebook and examined the map he had made. Okay, the door is on Maple. Yeah, closest to the corner of Maple and Turnbottom. Yeah, Maple and Turnbottom. Ken bit his lip and looked at me, before shining the flashlight at my foot. Okay, I can't feasibly find the path and carry you back at the same time. My heart crumbled at the insinuation. No, Ken, please. I've got to figure out the way back. I'm going to chalk mark the way, then come back. The police ride only took like 2 minutes. The walk can't take more than 20. I didn't want him to go off alone. Bruce, our parents are waiting. We have to go back. I know. Hey, you still have your phone, right? Ken reached into his pocket and plucked out his own, slapping it into my hand. Now you got 2 light sources. Flashlight's still good. I'll be back before you know it. That was the last thing Ken said before taking off. I watched the light slowly wander off into the dark before it finally vanished. I turned back and sighed, pulling out my phone to offer myself some comfort for the coming wait. There was no connection here, so I found myself scrolling through photos and playing with puzzle games I downloaded eons ago. Still, the senses were overloaded. Honk! An angry driver blaring the horn at someone, likely in a hurry to get their loved ones inside the hospital. The chirping of birds far overhead, the scorching metal of the bench beginning to burn me through my jeans. I eventually had to take the crutch and stand for a moment, just to cool down. That's when I saw it. The light. Straight ahead, about 50 yards away, there was a light. Not in the direction that Ken had gone, but just past the edge of the tree line. An orange, flickering brilliance. Flame. All other concerns left my mind. Curiosity had taken hold once again. The other world's incessant noises faded as I was drawn slowly across the park, towards the dirt path that led into the woods. My phone battery was strong, and its own light function was enough to follow the road. I had to see this light. I had to know how it was possible. Was fire an exception to the rule? That... had it just manifested there? How was I seeing this? Trudging through a small bush, the path just behind me, I reached the small clearing that the fire was set in. Yes, it was indeed a fire. I watched it crackle and snap and took in the aroma. Meat. Putrid. The very same essence that Ken and I had noticed near the house. I twinged in my gut. I looked at the fire's base and saw the reason. Nearly choking on my own saliva, then almost vomit. I covered my mouth, ready to scream when, "Hey, who's there?" Every muscle turned to stone. My eyes wandered back upwards to find a stout, portly man standing on the opposite side of the inferno. He was looking directly at me, but his eyes were squinted. He couldn't make me out properly, but I could clearly see the shovel in his hand, clicking against the flashlight that dangled from his hip. How foolish of us to assume no one else had discovered the way over, or even a different doorway, a perfect way to hide one's crimes, disposal in a completely different world, one where the person could never be tracked down to their origins, and have completely vanished from the original. Evidence easily destroyed in a manner less than noticeable to the people of this realm, and now I was face to face with the monster behind those acts. A familiar, broken muffler came roaring up in the dark beyond me, a single headlight beam briefly cutting through the trees before turning and turning off. Two monsters. The man tilted his head slightly, taking a step around the fire. I was out of time. I had to give him the exact answer that would not lead to my own body being added to the funeral pyre, to avoid the fate of that child. "What's with that hole?" I lied. The man stopped his advance before quickly gazing between the burning corpse and myself. "Eh?" I pointed forward. "That weird shadow on the ground. What's up with that?" My only hope of survival was convincing this man that I was of this world, not his, our own. Someone who, if missing, would raise attention on this side. Rivers of sweat sprinted down my neck. The man looked back at the bonfire and chuckled. "Oh, yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it?" "What's that, Travis?" A taller, more gangly man approached, two video cameras in hand. When he noticed me, his entire form froze. The lighting from below made it gnarled, unshaven face look even more horrific. "Who's the kid?" "I don't know, some local," Travis replied. He took a closer look, watching me before gesturing to the fire. "Yep, that's why we're here. We saw this the other day and figured there might be some critters in there. So we're taking a look." I swallowed cautiously and wiped my forehead. Yeah, just a weird shadow, don't you think?" Heart beating 1,000,000 times a second, throbbing in my ears. The taller man seemed to ease up and raise the camera with a half-toothed grin. "Well, that's what these are for. I wanted to record the whole ordeal." His half-truth did not go unnoticed, and my stomach did a barrel roll. The smell was not helping either, both of the stench of the murder to my left and the fat, budding char of the crispy child at my feet. Travis slapped a hand on my shoulder, hard. It took every ounce of my willpower not to cry out, or not to produce my lunch across the grass. "Well, you best be on your way. You don't want whatever's in there to jump out and get you, right?" His fingers tightened on my shoulder. I couldn't respond. I was transfixed on the body, watching a shoulder joint crumble and a whole arm collapse into the charcoal beneath. "Right?" he urged. "Bruce." Ken's voice broke me from my trance. I hobbled forward, shoving my shoulder out of Travis's meat hook. "Yeah, sorry. My friend's calling. Good luck with your hunting." Both men just slowly nodded towards me, and I pushed the crutch harder than ever. I saw the edge of the light pass my body and illuminate a piece of the path ahead of me. Looking over my shoulder, Travis had his own light out, seeing me off. Despite the burning in my retinas, I refused to noticeably squint and waved quickly before hurrying back down the path and calling to Ken. Rushing towards his light, I quickly wrapped my arms around his shoulder and pushed us both towards the path. "We need to go now." "What? Yeah, I figured out the way back, but what?" "We aren't the only ones," was all I had to say. No other words were exchanged until we were back at the house. Every moment, Ken was focused on getting us there. The red chalk was our saving grace, but intersections required us to wait for either audio cues or for other people crossing at the same time to know if we were truly safe. As I hobbled along, I listened desperately for the sound of that gravelly muffler, fearing its approach. Luckily, no such time came. Within 15 minutes, we had found the house and nearly tripped over each other trying to get inside, slamming the door and locking it, tears spilling on the age-rotted floor. We were home. We were safe. Ken and I both agreed we were done exploring the starless world for the foreseeable future, and after I had described what I had encountered on the edge of the park, we were both on lookout for that truck. Travis had gotten close enough, seen enough of me that there was a reasonable fear of him searching for me on this side. But the truck never appeared. No Travis. No lanky man. Nothing. Still, that dark I controlled, the one behind closed eyelids, had been forever tarnished. Every night henceforth, when I shut my eyes to sleep, I saw that kid burning away, clear as day, watching the child turn to ash, and the smell. God, the memory of that smell. It was an image so perfectly and literally burned into the inky void that it was impossible to forget any detail of it. I was waiting at a bus stop one day, reliving that moment again in that empty moment of patience. Breaking from the memory, I rubbed away any trace of moisture from my eyes, returning to the warm, sunny afternoon day. Breathing in, I inhaled the scent of scalding asphalt and dirt exhaust, and heard the rumbling of a rust box I'd been dreading. From the corner of my eye, I saw the dirty brown pickup. Inside the cabin were two men, a tall one at the wheel and a stout one in the passenger seat. The passenger turned slowly to face me, and I couldn't help gazing back. His eyes tried to pierce me, but failed. I was frightened for certain, but I also felt a spark of doubt. I think he did too. At least I hope he did. He never spoke, just watched me with a puzzled look as the truck took off, as if trying to place a face he'd only seen once before, half illuminated by the flame in the darkest of voids.
Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's show. If you think you might like a little more spooky in your life, then please feel free to click on one of the videos we have up here. Maybe look at one of the playlists if you're trying to get caught up. I know, there's so many videos on the channel. There's so many series that are going at the same time. Sometimes you just need a little refresher course, and I gotta say, I always enjoy the views. If you're not subscribed, feel free to hit that subscribe button. Maybe hit the bell so you don't miss anything. We upload a lot on this channel, so you won't want to miss a single story as they come out. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click on the Amazon link down there. There's quite a few books in my Amazon account. You can have a look, and if you'd like a signed copy, get up with me through email, and I'll be happy to work something out with you. Also, there's links to my Patreon, and you can become a member on the channel if you'd like your spooky a little bit early. Patrons and members on the $5 tier get their videos 12 hours early. That's in the morning as opposed to in the evening. Patrons at the $10 level also get a signed copy of my book anytime I write one. Speaking of my patrons, you should see them appearing right now. Just wanted to take a minute to say how much I appreciate all of you. Patrons, subscribers, however you give to the channel. I really appreciate everything you do, and it truly touches me that you have chosen to support the channel in this way. Well, that's enough for now. Till next time, Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.